All right, well, hey everybody, thank you for having us here to give this pretty brief presentation on some work that we're doing. And I'd like to just introduce Sheila Hess from CC Environment and Planning. We're very fortunate to work with her and her team throughout this project. I'm just going to take the first couple of slides here, and then I'll turn it over to Sheila to get a little more in depth on the project and ways to engage. All right, Sheila, you want to jump to the next one? Let's see. Okay, so just a quick overview of the presentation for this evening. I'll give just a really brief background of how we got here and the description of the project. And then Sheila will jump in on purposes and outcomes, go over the schedule of the project as it's laid out, and then speak on opportunities to engage with stakeholders and the public. And then we're going to open it up to discussion and questions. So this, I don't know, should only take about 15 minutes. All right, so briefly, I'll let Sheila go into a little more depth on what is an NRI. But really, you know, we're excited about this project because we've had a whole bunch of new things come into play since the county's 2010, the last revision, the county's open space plan. As part of that open space plan, there was a subset of maps that, you know, we called an NRI. And since then, we've had 1 meter land cover developed. We've had the Green Infrastructure Center Habitat Core Mapping Project, which we're really excited about, and some other developments, you know, and it's 12 years later. And so we're taking those newer elements and then this kind of advantageous opportunity of these online mapping programs and applications. And we're going to tie all that together into, you know, this current revision of the natural resources inventory. So we're really excited about the project in general. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are receiving funding from the Estuary program. And I see that Ingrid, I think, is on the call or was on the call.
Yes.
So thanks, Ingrid, to you and your team. And we're also working with a really great advisory committee. We're working very closely with the county's planning department. And so we are excited to really jump into this first phase of the project after some background work over the summer and early fall here. So with that, Sheila, I'll turn it over to you to take it away.
Okay, thank you, Ben. And nice meeting everybody, sort of. Maybe I'll see a lot of you at the public workshop that's coming up, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Just wanted to set the stage with a few thoughts in support of a natural resource inventory. One is the importance, I think we all agree, on the decisions we make and considering how they affect future generations. That's something that people have thought about for a long time, but it's not always easy. But when it comes to natural resources, it's pretty critical if we're thinking about resilience of our communities, sustainability of our environment, our economy, our society. All of that is supported by how intact our ecosystems are and the natural resources that they provide us. And the reason for that is pretty straightforward. And I think if I'm probably not telling you guys anything you don't already know, but ecosystem services is what drives a lot of our consideration of our natural resources, because without them, we truly struggle. And we see that more and more as we come up against some resiliency issues related to extreme weather events and other climate challenges. But ecosystem services are essentially things that we get from the forests, the wetlands, the streams, the meadows, the natural resources that are out on our landscape. And they can be categorized into provisioning, regulating, cultural, and supporting. And they're multiple in nature. Many of these we can relate to directly, like the cooler temperatures we feel underneath the canopy of a tree in the summer, the clean water and clean air that we receive from our resources, recreational opportunities outdoors, habitat for wildlife, which supports biodiversity, and even the formation of the soil upon which our food is grown. So ecosystem services being quite critical to everything that we do, we also recognize that there's huge challenges to the management of our natural resources. Fragmentation of our ecosystems is probably one of the biggest impacts we've seen over the last couple hundred years. And with that fragmentation, we see loss of some of those services. Adding to that now would be the challenges associated with climate change and the rising costs of everything, and the importance of making good decisions, creative decisions, collaborative decisions when we're considering our land use. This slide I actually developed from the circular sustainability slide we often see, where we have arrows in a circle that go from the environment to people or society to economy. I think this is more of an accurate representation of the relationship that supports sustainability, which is that our environment and our natural resources are a foundation. They're the base upon which we can build and grow and sustain our communities and our economies. So that brings us into the purpose of a natural resource inventory. The natural resource inventory is meant to be an informational source and a tool to provide that foundation for municipalities to make informed land use planning decisions. And, I think it's important to pause here too and just think about the vast amount of resources that our municipalities, being a home rule state, are tasked with managing. That's just such a shocking responsibility. And I work with a lot of municipalities, many of them rural, and it's really quite a daunting task. And so having an up-to-date natural resource inventory, and particularly in the toolkit format that's being described or part of the outcome of this project, can be a huge resource for those communities. This slide is really meant to just consider more of that at the local level, the importance of conservation at the local level. More and more communities are seeing that as being critical. For a start, state and federal protections are generally not enough for your local natural resources. Many of those programs are permitting programs. Local protection measures that are integrated into the everyday and annual processes of a municipality tend to be much stronger in nature, but we need a strong inventory and a good information and toolkit to support those local protection measures, to make them accurate and basically relevant to that community. There's a lot of challenges, which I kind of already mentioned here. Rural townships have limited resources, but a huge amount of land base to manage. Land ownership versus ecological processes. There's a mismatch there between parcel boundaries and what we know natural resources need to exist on the landscape. The difficulty that rural communities have in policing their neighbors, it's much easier when you can point to an inventory or a toolkit and all be on the same page and be seeing the same information when you're trying to make decisions. I wanted to just give an example too of some of the information that can be provided in a toolkit as well, which is a lot of regulatory language that's already out there that can be tailored once you have a natural resource inventory, can be tailored to fit a particular municipality. This map C comes from the Boston metropolitan area, and it was developed as a support for climate resiliency. The products, which Ben actually already covered, but we'll include that natural resource inventory. So a real-time description of the resources that are in Ulster County, the wetlands, the forests, the streams, the soils, geology, all of that information in a mapping portal that can easily be accessed by the community, by folks that are working for the municipality, by people who live and work in Ulster County. people who might want to do a project, whether it's development or conservation, but all that information right there, easily to access and continually updated. One of the things that we're focusing on in this project is to have as much live linked data as possible, so that as it's updated immediately, and it's not something that can quickly become outdated. And then the municipal toolkit and the training, which we just mentioned. Where we are in the process, and I never can tell what you guys can see versus what I can see, so hopefully you can kind of read some of this, but we're basically in the beginning stages here, where we're reviewing and compiling existing plans and data. We're not looking to duplicate any effort, wanting to know what's already out there and to bring that into the natural resource inventory. We're meeting monthly. That's these red dots at the bottom that go from, it's just over a year timeline, but we're meeting monthly with the technical advisory committee. We're beginning to outline the report and talk about the style of the mapping, and looking for additional data, which brings us to these presentations, the public workshop that's coming up, I'll talk more about in a second. Looking for input from stakeholders, a community targeted audience for the NRI and the toolkit, to understand how people are accessing information now, what kind of information they need, and what sorts of things we should be considering to make this the most beneficial and usable product when we're at the outcome. As we go through the winter, we'll be creating, based on the existing information and the feedback we get initially, we will be creating the draft narrative and toolkit for the NRI, reviewing maps and developing a draft that, once again, we'll be back with this committee, providing a presentation, asking you to take a look at what we've done and give us feedback. And we'll have another series of public workshops as well before we finalize and wrap up in the next fall. As far as stakeholder and public participation opportunities, I already talked about the technical advisory committee, which Ben also described. The presentations to both the Climate Smart Committee and this committee. And then the public workshops, our first being on November 14th in the evening. We'll be doing a presentation somewhat similar to this. We will have some breakout sessions and some activities, all in an effort to talk to the community and stakeholders about this project, what we're doing, what we're hoping to develop, and then most importantly, getting some feedback on where the existing information is, what kinds of things they're already doing, and what they would like to see. To that end, we also have a survey that's been developed, and we'll be asking everybody on this committee to participate with that survey with a follow-up email, and we'll also use press releases and social media posts to inform the public about this project. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. This website here is the current ArcGIS site that we have. That site is just a one-pager right now, but it does include a lot of the information about how to attend the public informational meetings, and it will have a link to the survey. And I don't know, Ben, if you want to talk a little more about that, you can, or we can go right into seeing if there's any questions.
The only thing that I would mention here is that we're referring to this term of hub site, and it's really just a website.
Yeah.
It's esri's.arcgis.com, kind of web platform, but it's really focused on geospatial data and data access, which we're really excited about. So Sheila mentioned that we're trying to pull in live data sets. Really, the point there is that there's all these organizations with their own data sets that usually get pulled into NRIs, but typically it's a lot of the same data coming in. And so what we want to do is just pull straight from the owners of that data, so that when they maintain it, we don't have to worry about our products being up to date, because we're using the same data that they're updating. And like Sheila mentioned, we'll send this link out to you all. Please feel free to register for events. and take the survey. It'll be really helpful for us to learn how everybody in the community and the EMC and similar councils and committees, access natural resource data, where they're going for that type of information. So we'll get that out to you probably at the end of this week or early next week. So yeah, with that, we'll open it up for questions and discussion. I see Roberta has her hand up. So yeah, Roberta.
Hi. Just along those lines, I was wondering about, how I guess the county already has all of the different towns that have done NRIs, and how is that just being kind of fully incorporated into the county, or is just parts of it, or how's that working?
Yeah, it's a good question. We see them as being distinct. And so we have the benefit at a county scale to really focus in on the connections that cross municipal boundaries and then cross even outside of the county boundaries, while at the same time fully appreciating that the municipal level NRIs will have a lot more detailed data sets outlining, say in Woodstock, the wetland water course protection overlay data, or the Town of Olive, stream management plans made their way into the NRI. So we don't really have the opportunity to incorporate like that kind of fine grain resolution data into a county data set, but we also have data sets that we're really trying to turn a little more publicly outward, like the habitat cores and the land cover and contours and stuff like that. And so we do see them as distinct, while we also want to leave the door open for the municipalities that currently do not have natural resources inventories to be able to use ours instead.
What time is the event on the 14th?
We're going to need a repeat. Is that Emily?
Yeah.
7 o'clock on the 14th.
Okay, thank you. And
follow up on that. Where is it located, and is it Zoom or is it in person?
I can take those. So yeah, the 14th is 7 o'clock at the Rosendale Rec Center. It'll be an hour and a half. And then we will have a follow-up virtual session on the 16th that starts at 11:30 and goes till 1 o'clock. The in-person workshop on the 14th, we will be offering training credits for planning board and ZBA members, just to entice folks to attend in person.
will you be putting things like the national, I forgot what I just went out of my head, the wetland data that's like national NWI? Would you be putting that kind of information on these, like the national or statewide data?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we have a lot of wetlands data.
okay, thank you.
I see at the top of a hand.
Oh, hey, it's Phil Erner, County Legislator, District 6. If we're the frogs in the pot, who's on the other end of that handle for climate change?
I don't know. I'm going to have to call the person who made the comic and ask them that. That's an existential question. That's like an existential problem. I'm not sure. No, I actually did a poor job of explaining why I even include that cartoon, and it's because it's just another added source of confusion and lack of consensus that I'm experiencing when I work with communities and they're trying to make land use decisions. So climate is, yet another item in the on the list of considerations for sure that make conversations interesting.
Other questions?
Yeah, this is Robert Cruikshank. I'm the new guy here, and thanks for the opportunity to be with you guys. I'm from Shandaken, and I'm curious if there's a solar inventory that will be included as part of the natural resource inventory. And specifically, was approached by a solar vendor, met with them last week, and they were showing me, kind of what the value is of my rooftop, the different faces of my rooftop. Some face the south, the north, the east, the west, and had done some sort of computer assessment using satellite imagery to indicate what the value of solar was on my building. And I thought, wow, if we could do that for the whole county or the town or a hamlet, to kind of show the scale of what's possible to people, that might be powerful. Are you thinking along those lines at all?
It's a really good question. No, we are not, and for a few reasons. Scenic Hudson has developed a solar siting tool that is really comprehensive as far as solar siting goes. I've played around with it a little bit, but others might have more experience if you have questions about it. And then, yeah, as far as like the solar potential, like I've seen those tools that kind of measure reflectance off of roofs, and then they calculate your angles and stuff like that. That's not really in the scope of this project, but we are, some of the data products that came out of the Scenic Hudson work, we are thinking about bringing in, and we're trying to find the link between like that type of infrastructure and natural resources. And so we're considering layers like EV charging station locations and the utility transmission network, like hosting capacity. And those are both data products that came out of that Scenic Hudson work with Central Hudson. But as far as individual roof assessments, no.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I'm on and off on a spotty internet connection, but I'm going to go back to listening. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome.
It's Simon from Olive. On that subject, there is the whole solar mapping education process that Manager Green is coordinating. It's going on right now.
Yeah, good point.
And certain towns have done town-wide assessments.
Right. But there are a lot of towns that have volunteered for that, and it's a free series. What's it, like 7 evenings once a month or something? So that's something that Shandaken might want to sign up for, Bob.
And on a reverse, I guess the reverse of that is that as people continue to participate in solar siting and make decisions like that, this NRI, once it's developed, and the mapping portal should be a good resource for those decisions.
Agreed. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we thank you very much for that introduction, basically, to where you're at. If I understood that this process is going to go on for over the next 12 months or so before it's completed?
Almost a year, yep.
Okay.
And hopefully I'll be able to meet some of you in person in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Sounds
great.
good.
Well, thanks for having us. I'm going to hang on for some of the discussion later, but Sheila's going to jump off. So yeah, thanks.